Hi, I'm Daniel, and this is our joint action video.
Hi, I'm Isaac, and this is our joint in action video.
I'm Stephanie, and this is the joint in action video.
These are the interphalangeal joints. This one right here is the distal interphalangeal joint known as a dip, and this one right here is the proximal interphalangeal joints known as pip. They do flexion, extension, flexion, extension. They move along the sagittal plane, and they are uniaxial. And since they only do this movement, they are a hinge. Okay, we're going to talk about the knuckle joints, which are these joints right here. They're all called the metacarpophalangeal joints. They do two actions. They do flexion and extension across the sagittal plane, and they do abduction, adduction across the coronal plane. They are biaxial since they only do two, and they're also condyloid joints. Right here is going to be the radiocarpal joint. We're going to start by doing flexion and extension, flexion and extension. That does it on the sagittal plane, and also does adduction, abduction, adduction, abduction on the coronal plane. Since it does two ways, it is biaxial, and it's also a condyloid joint. For flexion, it uses the flexor carpi ulnaris and the flexor carpi radialis. For extending, it uses the extensor carpi radialis longus and the extender carpi ulnaris. For adduction, it uses the flexor carpi ulnaris and the extensor carpi ulnaris. For abduction, it uses the flexor carpi radialis and the extensor carpi radialis longus.
Alright, so here we have the articulated skeleton. We're taking a look at the radio-ulnar joint, which is a pivot joint. Here I have it displayed in neutral, supination, and here's pronation. Supination, pronation, supination, pronation. On the arm, the major flexor, here I have it in neutral, the brachioradialis, supination, pronation, supination, pronation. Here we have the elbow joint. It is a hinge joint. That's the type of synovial joint. You can see it flex and extend, flex and extend. Using some resistance. In supinated form, you can see the biceps brachii using its force to flex. In neutral, like this, you can see the brachioradialis help out in flexion. In pronation, you get to see the true flexor, the brachialis. Should be right in here. Since this is the true flexor, only in neutral or supinated form will the biceps brachii and the brachioradialis help it. Now for extension, you'll see me do some curls. You can see the triceps pop out, and that's the one muscle that extends the arm or elbow. Alright, here we have the shoulder joint, also known as the glenohumeral joint. It is multi-axial, and it's a ball and socket joint. You have three sets of actions that it performs. You have flexion and extension, which happen on the sagittal plane. You've got ab and adduction, which happens on the transverse plane. And then you've got medial and lateral rotation, which happens on the coronal plane. Now, two muscles for each action. We have flexion, which has the delts and the biceps. Delts right here, biceps right here. Extension, we have the delts and the triceps on the back of my arm. Then we have abduction, pulling away from you, the delts and the supraspinatus in the back. For adduction, adding it to the body, we have the lats and the teres major, lat and the latissimal helper, teres major in the back. For medial rotation, we've got the delts and the lats pulling it towards me. And then for the lateral rotation, we have the delts and infraspinatus in the back, pulling it away from me. And that's the glenohumeral joint.
It's a coxofemoral joint. It's the ball and socket. It's a triaxial. And this is flexion. And it's a sagittal plane. The muscles that do this one are sartorius and rectus femoris. This is extension. That's the sagittal plane as well. The muscle is semitendinosus and bicep femoris. This is abduction, and it's coronal plane. It's the muscles of gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. This is adduction. That's the coronal plane, and the muscles are adductor longus and adductor brevis. Medial rotation is the transverse plane, and the muscle is gluteus medius and gluteus minimus. Lateral rotation is the transverse plane, and the muscle is sartorius and gluteus maximus. This is the knee. It's the tibiofemoral joint. It's the condyloid joint as well. It's biaxial. This is flexion. It's the sagittal plane, and the muscles are the bicep femoris and gastrocnemius. This is extension. It's the sagittal plane too, and the muscles are your vastus lateralis and vastus medialis. The transverse plane, which is the medial, is vastus intermedius and rectus femoris. And then transverse plane for the lateral is the muscles, the bicep femoris and sartorius. You ready? Okay, this is the ankle. It's a talocrural joint. It's also the hinge. And this is dorsiflex. And it's sagittal plane. The muscles are tibialis anterior, extensor digitorum longus. This is plantar flex, and it's a sagittal plane. And it's the muscles are soleus and the fibularis longus. This is evert, and it's coronal plane. The muscles are fibularis longus and fibularis brevis. This is invert, and it's coronal plane. The muscles are tibialis anterior and tibialis posterior.